What's up, class? Today, let me see, everything's working. Yeah. Today we're going to be animating the monarch butterfly that we that we illustrated in class on Tuesday. What's up, Jose? What's on the menu? What'd you make for dinner today? But yeah, so we're just going to kind of get right into it. The first thing I'm going to do is create an After Effects file. So let me do that. Oh, sweet. I already did. Perfect. I forgot about that. I forgot that I already created that. Hi, Minerves. You just laying there being all cutesy wootsy? Are you being cutesy wootsy? Are you taking class too? You don't pay for it. I should kick you out. I should kick you out. Oh, you're being a kid. Hi. 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 Okay, let's get back to work, okay? Here, play with your toy. Play with your toy. All right, so let's look here. We have our... I thought that was the audio. Oh, no. This is the video that we can reference if we want to. And then in here, we have already imported the music and the voiceover. The vector, I actually deleted the one that I imported in last class because I'm going to re-import this one for you guys and show you guys how to do that. Spicy shrimp with rice sounds like a delicious dinner. That sounds amazing. Okay, let me... First thing I want to do is... I probably would have added... I was in the middle of adding a little bit more detail. Maybe I'll continue to do that. Right here. Move this around. Just essentially... These guys, I think I'm going to change their color more to this one. So these ones blend in a little bit more, and then let me move this over here. Just kind of get this one looking a little bit more polished. I'd probably take more time on this. Come on now. Sometimes you'll have issues where it won't show. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but that's perfectly fine. I'll put that one up here. Make it a little bit smaller. Instead, I wanted to do this one. There we go. Yeah. He'll be his own little lonesome guy over there. Maybe move it in a little bit closer. I think that looks good. Well, come on. Why don't you show it? I'm going to group all this stuff together here. So I have the head and the abdomen and everything all on the single layer, and then the wing on a layer, and then the antenna on a layer as well. This reference layer I can always delete. Or I can just shut it off. Like I have it shut off right now, so I'll just keep it in here in case I need to use it for some reason in After Effects, but I'm just going to save this. Do you want to continue? Yes. Okay. Let's see if I bring this in. I'm going to close it out real quick because I was working on my iPad on it for a minute today. Under Vector folder, I'm going to hit Control I to import the monarch butterfly. It looks like that's the correct one. And then again, making sure that you're importing it as a composition, retaining the layer sizes and not just a regular composition, or definitely not footage. If you do a regular composition and not retain layer sizes, what it does is it makes each bounding box of each layer the size of your composition. And that can be problematic when you're going to grab certain parts of that layer, maybe if you're moving it around or something like that. And so it's always best to just put retain layer sizes, and the bounding boxes will fit usually to the actual shape. So that's what I use. And then we don't have a sequence here, so we don't have to do that. I'm going to hit import. And again, right off the bat, we get a composition that's monarch butterfly. Actually, I'm going to rename this one to monarch butterfly, or I'm going to say top view. Because we're going to have a couple different things. We're going to reuse some assets here. I'm going to double click this and open up into it. And you can see that we have our butterfly. Looks great. I'm going to delete that reference image there. I'm probably going to delete the background here. We'll create our own background. And we are going to start to rig everything up. I do think I want to create shape layers from the vector layer, right? So what does that mean? Let me, first of all, let's take all this and move it to the center here and zoom in on it. Again, we've done this before, but if you right click and go to create shapes from vector layer, what it does is it just creates a shape here, a native shape in After Effects. And it's a non-destructive way of creating those shapes. So when you do this, you know, it just hides the native vector layer. So your Illustrator layer just kind of shuts off and it stays there, which I think I'm going to do. Let me see if it works with the wing, because sometimes it has a little bit of issues when it comes to gradients transferring over. I've had in the past, but it might not. Let's see. Let's see with this one. Yeah, see, so all of my gradient information went away. And so I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm just going to keep it the way everything is. The one thing I do want to do, though, is I want to make sure that I click the continuously rasterize button so that it's constantly staying sharp. 1 second. Let me... turn this on so you guys can see what that button looks like. Oh. That's this button right here. Continuously rasterize. And you want to turn that on anytime you're working with Illustrator, like Adobe Illustrator vector layers. You're going to want to turn on these. Just, all you got to do is click these little boxes next to it. And so it'll remain sharp no matter what. Again, right now I'm like at a 200% zoom. So this might still look pixelated even when I continuously rasterize, because what's pixelating is my stage and not the actual shape layer itself, right? So this will always remain sharp, but you do have to turn this on in order for that to happen. So I'm just gonna do that right now. And again, it doesn't look like it right there because I am zoomed in here. I'd have to put fit on there. But if I scaled everything up, which I'm probably going to do actually right now, so I'm going to right click and create a new null object. And I'm going to select all of these and attach them to that null object. And then I'm going to scale that up so that I have these. And see how they're continuously sharp. Like it doesn't matter, like it's always sharp right now. And that's because I hit that continuously rasterize button. Probably 150 will be okay. That's a good size there. And then I am going to duplicate the wing. So let's duplicate this right here. Actually, before I do that, let's move the anchor points into the correct place based on where the animation is going to come from. Well, where the movement originates from on that object, right? And then we're going to duplicate the wing and put it over. The reason I want to do the anchor point first is because it is going to not only save us work of having to adjust that anchor point later, but then the anchor point's going to be in the exact same spot on the second wing, which is what I want, because I want them to flap in exactly the same way. I mean, butterflies, moths, in most insects are very symmetrical. So, doing this, it's just going to keep that symmetry more symmetrical versus like if I were to duplicate it now and then try and match up the anchor point on it, it might not be perfect. So I'm going to hit Y on my keyboard and we're going to move the anchor point of the wing right about to here, around the center of the wing, but over to the side because the flapping obviously is going to come from like where the body is, right? I don't have the side view of the body done yet. I'll just wing it. When we get to that part, I'll just like draw something quickly inside of After Effects here. The top view body, I'm probably just going to move this to the top of the abdomen. Even though like this isn't necessarily as big of a deal, it might be if you use it later. So something you think about. And then the antenna, the motion is going to come from down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to hold down shift. Sometimes you can hold down shift. Sometimes you can't. It won't. Sometimes it wants to snap to whichever like little bounding box vertice your edge is closest to. And sometimes that can be a pain. So I'll just let go of shift at that point and just move it to where, you know, best guess of closest to where I can get it. And now we're going to connect the wing to the body. So I want to drag my pick whip to the body of the with the wing. So attaching the wing to the body. I'm going to change this layer color so that I can see it. And then the antenna as well, I'm going to attach to the body because the body's going to drive most of the movement. And then I'm going to change this to, I don't know, we'll go to red, right? And I'm going to save my work. And I am going to keep the body connected to the null here because who knows, maybe I want to adjust everything at some point and it might just be a little bit easier that way. In fact, I'm going to move the null. Let's delete the null and then let's move this into the center. I think we'll do it that way. Let me turn my title action safe on here and grab the body and hit P for position. And then I'm going to move that over. And I am going to move this up a little bit. Probably to right about there. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, let's save this now. And then I'm going to recreate that null. Or what you can do is you can go into solids up here and it always puts your null up there. And so I can bring it back down and then reattach the body to it. Oh, excuse me. And then I can just, it doesn't, how do I remove? Trying to figure out how to remove the white box from the null, but it's not that big of a deal. I can just hide the thing there. Change that to white so I can see it. Alright. Just in case I want to use it, I can do that. And so now we can go ahead and duplicate that wing. So Control D when selected on that layer. And then I'm going to go into scale, and I'm going to unclick on that. So I'm unlinking the proportions, unconstraining the proportions, right? And then I'm going to type in -0 on the X value, and that's going to directly duplicate it over there. And then what I want to do is, obviously I need to move this over slightly, so I'm just going to hit P on my keyboard and pretty much line it up as best as I can. Looks really good right about there. I am figuring out where it is, gauging the distance right here between the wing and the head is about similar on either side. Excuse me one second. I'm going to shut my camera off real quick. I need to grab a Kleenex. Hey Angel, I just saw that you said your map and the audio is not working for you. What's going on? Have you extracted them from the folder? Like unzipped it? Try downloading them again if that's the case. Because they should work. They should work for you. Just let me know in the chat and I'll keep an eye out there. So, the other thing now that we have to duplicate is the antenna. So I'm going to do the same exact thing. Thank you guys, by the way, for letting me take that break. I had to grab a box of them. I've just been spending a lot more time outside since we got the new dog and everything's in bloom. When I moved out here, I don't know if you guys have always lived out here, but when I moved out here, my allergies got worse. I apologize. I know it's weird and gross. I'm like a snotty little toddler. I'm sorry, guys. So I Control D on, I selected the layer and then I press Control D to duplicate that layer for the antenna. And then again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to scale and I'm going to unconstrain the proportions and type in -100 in the X value. And then I'm going to go to position and I'm going to just move this over so that it's in about the same exact spot. Perfect. Excellent. And then now when you go to scale, you can turn back on constrain proportion. And so that will allow you to scale those if necessary equally without having it like flip back over to anything. Do you think I can show you how to unzip the folder? Yeah, so quickly, if you have your folder and it is zipped, let me see, like this, you just right click on the folder and then you select extract all. And then the folder will appear like this, right? Without the little zipper on it. Like this one, if I right click and hit extract all, I get this message on the side. I extract it. And then it's just going to open the folder in the same exact spot. And now that that one's zipped, I don't use that. I use this folder right here. So now I can open this folder and do all sorts of stuff and change files and everything like that. And try and keep that to a minimum today. So the next thing I want to do is just double check to make sure that everything's still connected to the body, and it is. So if I were to grab the body and scale the body up, everything scales with it. If I were to move the body, everything would move with it, so on and so forth, right? So everything's all set up here. Now, when we look at, let's set up the entire first scene. The thing is, with this, I do want to keep it in its own separate composition, like pre-comp, because I'm going to be reusing this. So I am going to make a couple new compositions here. The first ones I want to make is called main. Main comp. That sounded really bad. The main composition. 30 seconds is great. Let me put that. It was 24 frames a second, 1920, 1080. I'm going to move that over here. And I am going to create a new composition under that. That's going to be called Scene 1. And I'll leave it at 30 seconds because what I'll do is I'll trim that down. And Scene 1, in fact, I'll make all 3 scene compositions. So Scene 2, enter, and then I'm going to do, all I have to do is come up here and hit Control D and duplicate, and make a third scene there. I'm going to save that. So all my scenes are set up right now, and then probably would have an additional scene for my, well, you could have an additional scene pre-comp for your composition for your credits, or you could just put it at the end of this section here. But the biggest thing here is we need like some kind of background, right? So let's throw in a new solid in our main composition. I'm going to move that there. Go over here, right click, new solid, and our background color. Okay, I can go with this blue. Actually, it defaulted to like this royal blue color, which I like. I think that's pretty. So I'm going to lock this because that's going to be our background. And the second thing that I want to do is I want to start bringing the audio. Let's talk about audio when working with audio inside of After Effects. So first off, I need to warn you guys that After Effects handles audio terribly. It actually really does a bad job at processing and playing back audio. But the reason that is because After Effects is a visuals program, right? It's all about working mostly visually. And so when you've got a lot of visuals and you have audio on there, what the computer does is it prioritizes what it thinks is most important within the software, which is visuals, right? And so what happens is when you're playing a composition with heavy animation in it and your computer's like, sometimes it's even light animation and your computer's like, I don't want to do it. And so it'll drop like the pitch and it slows it down and it sounds like robotic and weird and demonic kind of. And it doesn't sound great. So what I like to do is what I really like to do is I like to bring it into Premiere and then work with it in Premiere, which is a video editing software, but it just handles audio much better. But I need to teach you guys how to use it inside of After Effects because it is important to still understand and know how to. And so we're going to be doing the audio inside of here. The first thing I like to do is I like to bring the voiceover down in here, and I like to drop it below all of my layers, so that I don't accidentally like end up touching it later. And the other thing that I will do is I will bring the music down in here. And the music, now when you look at the layers, when you bring them in, you're going to see that whenever there's layers that have audio attached to it, so if it's a video or if it's a song or voiceover music layer, whatever, it's going to have like your little volume speaker icon next to it, and that shows that that is basically on and active. So if I wanted to mute this layer, I would just shut these off. And so that's what I'm going to do first with the music layer, because I want to deal with that after we first start with our audio layer. Now, if I play back the audio right now, come on.
Every winter, monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America. Monarchs use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
Great. So that sounds really good. Obviously, we don't have any visuals going on, so it sounds fine right now. But I want to be able to see the waveform of the audio so that I can visually see where there's breaks in it, so I can cut up the file here, right? So I can cut this layer into different pieces, maybe shuffle them to make a little bit of space. But I am essentially working out the timing of my video right now, because the timing, when it comes to voiceovers and stuff, the timing of the voiceover is what's going to drive the animation. And so that's why you want to really work this section out first before you start animating anything, is because it's the voiceover that's going to drive the whole video. So in order to view the voiceover, what you have to do on your computer in quick succession is hit LL. Let me change this color. Type. No. I thought I could change the color. There we go. Here. LL. So if you hit that quickly when you're on an audio layer, what is going to come up is the waveform. So I hit LL. I hit it twice and you can see the waveform. Now, where there is flat sections showing nothing means that there's nothing being said or there's no music happening within that section, right? So if I move my playhead over here and I play, you're not going to hear anything. But as soon as I move over this, you know, where there's peaks and valleys and it looks like little mountain ranges, that is essentially your audio. And so I can see where there's breaks in what he says, and I can kind of guess where these pauses occur naturally just by visually looking at it. So the first section, if you looked back at the video example,
Every winter, monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
So in the beginning of the video, or in the original one, when he says every winter, the first thing that happens is this icon pops into screen, and then it's going to transition over into the next scene, which is the migration scene, right? Well, I want to have a quick second longer for us to really see that icon scene where the butterfly pops into view and the wings are kind of flapping. Right now, I think it's just slightly a little bit too fast and we don't get time to really see that section. I'm going to shut my camera off, you guys. You don't really get time to see that section of the animation, and so I just want to extend that a hair. It doesn't have to be done a long time, but I'm going to be listening to what kind of sounds more natural and what sounds good. So in order to break this layer, well, essentially it's called splitting the layer. And in order to split the layer, what you have to hit is Shift Control D. So when I hit that, it will split my layer off. So I have this section, and then the rest, anything past that section was put onto a new layer, right? So it's not a destructive form. If I were to go like this, I could obviously still see the rest of the waveform there and the rest of the audio. But this allows me to take this and move it over slightly so that I have a little bit more of a gap in between what he says right at first before it gets into the next statement. So I'm going to play that. In fact, I want to view the waveform on this next one. So I'm going to hit double L in order to see that. And I'm going to play it to see if it sounds natural with that
Every
little gap.
winter, monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
That's not bad.
Monarchs
Might be a
typically-
little bit too long. In fact, what we could do, because it sounds so natural like that, maybe what I would do is we'll introduce a voiceover in in a second. So we'll actually just keep the voiceover the normal timing that I had. This is still good to know in case you guys do need to break up voiceovers later. So like when you're going to create your own custom 3-scene animation, which is going to be the next project, you guys will be creating your own voiceovers. And so being able to kind of cut the audio up and chop it up and move things around if you need to is important to know how to do. So instead of like having this butted up right up to the beginning like this, I'm just going to move it back a little bit, maybe like a half a second. I'm going to zoom in here so I could see moving into 12 frames. And that'll give me an extra 12 frames in the beginning to pop up our butterfly. All right. Now we need to talk about how to turn the audio levels down, right? So if I were to select the music right now and turn the music on, and let's look at the waveform, hitting that quickly, you can see that, let's zoom out of here too real quick. We can already see that the waveform looks a lot different in the beginning versus right here in the middle. And that's because usually songs have some kind of introduction to them, right? To build up to a certain part of the song that is maybe a little bit more intense or, where the main melody and stuff is. And so you can see that happening. You're going to see this a lot of times in music files and audio files. And so what I want to do is I actually want to listen to this to determine maybe where I want to start the audio. So I'm going to shut off the voiceover. And we're going to move this to the beginning. We're going to take an initial listen. And that's actually the beginning part of the audio in the video. It's probably chosen because it's not as chaotic and loud. This section here, from like, what is this on our time code? 12 seconds, 11 frames, all the way back, to the rest of the song is really high level and really intense. And so the reason this section isn't used is because it needs to be behind the voiceover. And what I mean by when I say behind the voiceover is it needs to be in the background and it needs to be present, but you don't want it to overtake the voiceover. We talked about this last class about being able to balance your audio so you can still hear what is being said by the, voiceover or the voice actor. and being able to have the music in the background and being able to enjoy it. Now, right away off the bat, this is too loud for the voiceover. If I were to play it with the voiceover, you can see what I mean by competing, right? When I start playing this.
Every winter, monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
It's still too loud. It's hard to hear because it's not really the main beat. But if I move this over, you'll see what I'm talking about. At that audio level, you can't hear what the voiceover is saying. So we obviously need to adjust that, right? Well, adjusting audio volume is called decibels. Now, decibels always start at 0. And in order to view the decibel level here on the audio, you just hit L one time, right? And they always start here at 0. Now, when you're turning audio levels up, you go above into the positive range. And when turning audio levels down, you need to go into the negative range on your decibels. Sometimes you'll hear me say turning it down a notch. And what I mean by a notch is turn it down 3 decibels. It's like turning it down, a notch on your computer. Like if you were to look down and had like some kind of audio, like music controller, like a knob or something that you were turning down. And as you were turning it down, it would go down by like increments of -3 decibels, right? So if I were going to turn this down, the music down, because what you don't want to do is really be turning things up. I really don't turn up audio unless for some reason the voiceover wasn't captured properly in the first place. When capturing a proper voiceover, your audio levels should be between when I bring this up, this will be great for you guys to see. And when I play this, a good audio level should be right nestled between -6, usually -3, right in this range. You really don't want it hitting the 0 range because that is really starting to blow out the audio, and it's too loud at that point, right? So you really want to kind of hit the sweet spot is right here in between this yellow and green range when it comes to the voiceover. So if I were to just play this audio, let's see.
Monarchs use
Let me move this over to here. See if it'll work this way.
Winter. Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
It's actually a little
Monarchs
low.
use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
So, because it's a little bit lower than where I was thinking, I want it to kind of hit around -6. We are gonna turn this up. So, it's not that it sounds bad, but I think -6 is a great spot for a voiceover to hit. So I'm just gonna turn this up by 1 notch. So I'm typing 3. And now let's listen to it and see where this hits on the audio range. If you guys do not have this little audio panel up here, you can just go under window and you can select audio. It's also Control-4 on your keyboard. And this panel will pop up and you'll be able to listen to your audio.
Butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America. Monarchs use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
What I'm looking for is it doesn't have to consistently always be around the -6, but I want to start to see peaking around the -6 level right here. So what does that mean? Like at the highest points of the audio, really don't go much past that. There was one part that went past it a little bit, but beyond that, I think that most of it was in the appropriate level. So
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America. Monarchs use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to adjust the levels of the music to set behind that voiceover. So I want to see the wavelength first because I want it to start LL. Oh, it's because I haven't muted. It won't, the waveform won't show up if your layer is on mute. So I'm going to drag this over. And I want it to start at the very beginning. Right there. That's exactly where I want it to be. Let's
travel thousands of miles.
All right. So when I play this, now look where it's peaking. It's going to be way up here.
Is a combination of air,
especially when it gets over here. That's way too loud. So I'm going to go to hit L once, and let's turn it down like 3 notches. So that's going to be -9, right? 3 each time. Negative numbers are turning it down. And let's listen to it now.
Winter. Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America. Monarchs use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
That sounds perfect. I could probably go even just slightly lower to a -12 if I wanted to. But I would reserve that for the end section and not at the beginning, because the beginning is low enough. Here where he's talking and it's introducing the song, where it starts to like, the song picks up and it's like, do, 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 is maybe where I would change the levels down. Now, what do I want to do? What would I do if I want to do that, right? Like have 2 different levels on my audio. Here. Well, if you notice, these have stopwatches next to them. So you can actually animate the audio levels, which is cool. So if I were to hit my waveform here, and maybe I want my audio level to be at, if I move my playhead to where I want it to be, hit L once to go to this, the decibel thing. If I drop the waveform down, I can also see it at the same time. And then move right here. And maybe here's where I want it to drop to -12. So I'm turning it down 1 extra notch. And then now when I listen to it, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go through and do any kind of easing or anything to this. It's mostly going to be like a linear change. And that's what we want. So
Monarchs use a combination of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
if I were to delete this, you can hear how it increased a little bit, right? So I'll leave that actually. So what it's doing is it's just reducing that volume level between these keyframes here. And then the rest of this now is going to be dropped down to the -12 versus the beginning, which is at -9. So I'm going to leave it like that. It sounds pretty good. I'm going to save my work right now. And now that we've got our audio locked in, I'm going to lock the layer. The second thing that I want to do actually is mark out on the audio, the voiceover track, where the sections are where I might need to do like a change in visuals, right? So in the beginning, here is where we change, right? He says, monarch butterflies travel thousands of miles in South America. Well, that's not what it says.
Butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Okay, perfect. This section right here, this first section is where the icon is introduced. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a marker on my timeline here. And what the marker does is it marks spots where I can basically add little notes in to be like, here is where I need to make a change at this spot or this spot. And it's just like adding little tabs to something so you can see. And I'm going to actually add it directly to my voiceover in case I need to move this around a little bit. I'll be able to, and the markers will move with it, and then I can adjust the rest of my scenes accordingly, right? So right here is probably where I am going to want to add the first marker. And if you want to add a marker to a layer, you have to make sure that layer is selected. If you want to add a marker to the entire timeline, you make sure that no layers are selected, okay? So just keeping that in mind, I'm going to select that layer and I'm going to hit the little asterisk button, which is the tiny little star button. It looks like this one. This is your asterisk. I'm going to hit that button, and what that does is it creates this little marker here. And notice that if I hover over this, it allows me to move that around if I want to. But if I hit Alt, it allows me to split that marker up and go like this. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to split the marker. And then here is where I'm going to put my North America scene. Right? And then I'm going to change the label color so I can see it. So maybe do a dark green will be okay. And now I can read that there. And I'm going to move my playhead right over to here. And I'm going to hit the asterisk sign again and create a new marker. Holding down Alt, I'm going to click and drag this one right here. And double click on it. And this is going to be my nature scene. Kaleidoscope of butterflies. And then I'm going to change the color to maybe dark purple so I can see that there. I keep feeling like I'm going to sneeze. I'm so sorry, you guys. All right. And then at the beginning, obviously, is going to be the icon scene. And then right here, in fact, I'm going to move this over a little bit because right here is where we're going to fade into our, so I'm going to hit another thing. And then I'm going to maybe create, I don't know if it'll go past the layer. Let's see this. I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, well, cool. Double click on this. And this is where I'm going to add the, what do I want to call it? The end scene. With your guys' names. My brain is blinking. For some reason, I want to say captions. And it's because I've been working with captions all day in my regular job. So, it is your credits. C, credits. That's what I want to put. All right, dark blue label. Perfect. Credits. And then the intro, I can put another one here. And move this over here, holding down Alt. Double click. Intro. Perfect. So now I have my scene timing mapped out based on the audio. And this is important because, like I said, after we start putting animations into the video, the audio is going to go downhill very quickly. It might not do that on my computer necessarily right away, but it might do it on yours depending on what your computer can handle. Sometimes my computer just doesn't want to, even though it's simple. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to lock this layer though now. And I'm actually going to shut off the music. So we're not focusing on the music. We're just going to focus on the voiceover. And making sure everything's saved. And we're going to jump right into scene 1. So inside of scene 1, I'm going to drag my top view butterfly. Let's drag that in there. And I want to start to animate this butterfly right in here. So when the butterfly is flapping its wings, the wing flaps are not going to be, if I hit R for rotation, because they're going to be rotations, they're not going to go like this, right? That's not how butterflies flap their wings. Butterflies obviously flap their wings. It needs to move into a Z space. Well, that's where After Effects has something called 2.5D. And that allows us to essentially fake 3D. And we can turn that on to the layer by turning this little box on next to those layers, right? So you're going to want to click these on. And what it's going to do automatically, you're going to see is the little anchor point thing is going to change. And it's going to look like the little gizmo thing that you see inside of Cinema 4D. Very similar, right? So when I turn it on the wing, you notice that all of a sudden it looks like this, right? You see your y-axis, which is always green, your z-axis, which is always blue, and then your x-axis, which is always red. You can also see this appearing right down here in the corner. And I want to turn this on to all of my layers right now. Even though not all of them will move in 3D, right? We still want to just have them all on for consistency. And we need to start flapping the butterfly's wings. So we need to figure out which direction they need to start flapping. So when I hit R on the layer for rotation, you notice that now we have like an additional rotation option in here. Now we have X, Y, and Z rotation that we can work with. There is orientation, which we're not going to touch right now. That's different. You want to make sure that you're only doing the rotation. Okay, guys? And so I'm going to first kind of, it's not that one. I'm going to Z, it's this one right here. So our Y rotation, okay? And so I'm going to start at 0 here. And I'm going to bring my playhead to the beginning. And I'm going to keyframe the first rotation. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see my timeline a little bit tighter. I'm going to move to frame 12. And I'm going to rotate. The butterfly wings have to move upwards. So it's going to go in a negative rotation instead of a positive rotation. Because you got to think of like you're looking at it sitting on a flower or like the wall or something like that. We're looking at the top of the butterfly, not the bottom of the butterfly. And so I think I'm going to make this a negative 35, I think will look nice at first. And then I'm going to move another 12 frames and I'm going to copy and paste that. And then I'm going to move another 12 frames. And I'm going to animate that a little bit further. So I'm going to negative 50. So it goes up a little bit higher. Then move another 12 frames and put in the 0. And like we learned, let's play this. Nice, the timing's not bad. Like we learned in last class, we are going to get a lot of mileage out of the expression loop out today. And so really I only want to set a few keyframes here, making sure that my beginning and my end keyframe are the exact same values, right? And I made a little bit of the change here is that it kind of flaps open a little bit in one flap and then it goes down and flaps further in the second flap, so it gives it a little bit of variation here, right? And it's not just flapping the same in each one. And so I'm going to add that loop out expression here. I'm going to hit Alt on my keyboard and click on the stopwatch. And I'm going to type loop out right there. I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm just going to click. And so when I play it now, it's constantly going to loop that motion. Now, I want to also add that animation here to the other wing, which we will copy and paste, which will make it very quick. But first, I want to add some easing to these animations here. So I'm going to select all of the keyframes. And I'm going to hit F9 on my keyboard. And then we're going to move over here. And I'm actually just going to, this is going to be the value graph. And I'm just going to accentuate these a little bit. I'm not going to do this. Going a little bit like this. This one a little bit more here. Same with this. So on and so forth. Accentuating that wing flap. Move this out. Try matching up these ones. Right there. Hello. Alright, so let's watch this. Not bad. I think I'm going to bring this in and not have it so accentuated. Same with this one. Let's watch that. I do like that one much more. All right, and so now that we have the work done for the one wing, let's not manually do it for the next wing. We're just going to copy and paste everything. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to select the Y rotation that I have animated on this first wing, and I'm just going to hit Control C, and then I'm going to move my playhead. This is very important, to move your playhead to the beginning of the timeline before you paste it, because if you don't, it will paste it in a different section. And so now that I have it, we have flapping going on, but you're going to notice that obviously this is moving in the wrong direction. So we just need to update those keyframes to have a positive value instead of a negative value. So if I go right here, so instead of negative 35, I'm going to just type in positive 35. And then over here, instead of negative 50, I'm going to type in positive 50. I'm going to double check on my graph. Looks good still. It's still got similar easing. It just flip-flopped in a different way. And now when I play it, we have this really nice, smooth-looking wing flapping that's happening here. And, thank you. And it looks like the butterfly is like resting on something. The one thing that I do see is a little bit of an artifact that's happening right here where the wings are interacting with the body layer. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to adjust where the body layer is in Z space in order for that to kind of mitigate itself and not become a problem. And so we'll see if it works. Sometimes it might push it back a little bit too far. But in order to do that, let's minimize these layers. And over here on the lower right side of your composition, you see that there's a couple different options to look at. So you have your classic 3D render, which is fine. We're not going to touch that. But there's this option that says active camera. What does that mean? That means we're looking through an active camera at the moment, and we're only in a single view. Well, we can change that to where we have multiple views, and we can be looking in a different in an alternate view. So right here, kind of like how when we're in Cinema 4D, we have the, you go into your view, you could change the view that you're looking at, right? Like you can look at the top, the right, the bottom side, the perspective view. So there's different views you can look at. Well, this one defaults to your top view right here, which is fine. You can change that right over here if you want to. But I actually do want to be in my top view. And what I'm looking at right here are my layers. Now, these are my wing layers right here. And the way I can tell that is if I start to move my playhead, you can see them flapping. And you can also see where they are intersecting right here with my body layer and antenna layer, okay, because they're on the exact same spot, right? And the layer colors will reflect here as well. So in order to change that, the first thing that I have to do is I actually have to unlink the wing layers from the body. And I'm going to select that body layer. And over here in this view, I can just nudge this back a little bit so that it is not being affected at all. And then when we look here, when we zoom in here and we play, nice, we don't have any overlapping happening here. And we can also see that here, when we manually move this, it is not intersecting at all with that. And that looks pretty good. Now, I also might want to add a little bit of slow rotation to these antennas. I'm going to hop out of my 2 view here and go back to single view. And the next thing that I want to do is make sure that I link these back to the body layer using my pick whip. I'm going to save my work. And I'm going to select these antennas and just hit R for rotation on them. And we're probably going to rotate, let's see here. I think it's going to be the Z value. Yeah, the Z value is what we want to end up rotating. So I'm going to start at 0 on both of these. And just since I'm moving, like since I've got them both open, I'm just going to animate them both at the same time instead of just copying pasting. And so I kind of want it to be offset from the from the wings, and not as fast, right? I want the wings to be moving faster. The antennas are going to kind of have like a delayed rotation, and it's not going to be that drastic. It's going to be a very subtle rotation. So I'm actually going to move, instead of 12 frames, up to 18 frames here. And I'm going to rotate the first one maybe up a little bit. That's fine. +8. That's great. And then I'll do this one to -8, so it's the same. So they're like going out like that. Maybe I wait a little bit longer over here to maybe 22 frames. And maybe we go back to the initial. Let's copy the 0, paste that there, maybe move forward ahead, and then we'll do opposite of that, right? So we'll move maybe a little bit in the other direction. And then I'm going to move ahead again, maybe to 4 here. It's a little bit more random. And then I'm going to copy and paste the first value, which is always 0, right here, right? So that they end up, because it's going to be like a loop. That's not bad. Maybe what I would do is have, where's our next 0? Right here. Maybe I'm going to copy this 0 frame right here. So during this time, and move these over here. So within this section, there is no movement happening, right? It just kind of stays in one position. It stays in that default position, and then it moves back, right? And then it moves back into the 0 default position. So you can always do that. So it kind of stops, right? If you want to have like a break or stop in the animation, you just make sure that your keyframes from one point to the next point are exactly the same, and you're going to have nothing happening there, right? You can see that on a graph. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to loop this. So instead of actually hitting Alt and looping the animation again, what you can do is you can grab a property that already has the loop out expression added to it, and you can right click on it and you can select copy expression only, and then you can select the area you want to paste that expression, and you can actually just paste that expression directly on there. So it's going to automatically loop out. And you have that movement of the antennas. We can go in here and just give it a quick ease, hitting F9. Let's hop into the, right here, the Z rotation. Right here is where you can see there's no change happening, right? And we're in the value graph here. So I'm just going to accentuate, holding down Shift, this section, maybe a little bit. And then this one as well, holding down Shift. That's just the one, so you got to remember to do it to the second one, right? So I'm going to grab this and holding down Shift, do a little accentuation just on these ones. You can accentuate right here and right here if you want to as well. So it doesn't really have that default easing. Hold down Shift, hold down Shift. There we go. Nice. All right, let's save that work. Excellent. So we have our butterfly animated. The next thing that we want to look at is when we check out our one right here, we see that there's actually a shadow being casted underneath. So let's go into the scene here, and let's add a background first, because right now this is just a black background. If I hit transparent, you can tell that it's transparent. there. So I'm actually going to take this blue and I'm going to bring this down here and I'm going to change it to a different layer color. Maybe a little bit lighter. Ooh, that's not bad. Maybe shift the hue slightly to more of an aqua. Right there is cool. And I'm going to hit new, and what that's going to do is just create a new layer, but that allowed me to use the other one to create kind of like a cohesive palette. And the next thing I want to do is I want to add that that shadow there. Now, normally what you guys would think to do is adding just a drop shadow, but we don't want to do that in this case because we want the shadow to animate along with the butterfly's motion. I don't think the drop shadow works as well. Let's try it out and see what it looks like. But I don't think it really, I don't know. I don't know if I used the drop shadow last time. We might use the same perspective drop shadow. Let's put it on one of the wings. And so it's on this wing. Let's kind of zoom in here. Go to 100. We can see the drop shadow on the side. We don't want a hard shadow. We want a soft shadow, and we want to increase the distance that it is there. So I'm probably going to put it at like 20. And then the softness, I always add 10. So 30 for the softness. So it gives it a little bit more of a softer edge. In fact, I would probably bump that to 35 to give an even softer edge. And then I'm going to drop the opacity down a little bit more, maybe to 30%. And I'm probably going to change the color of the shadow to like a dark blue to look like it blends a little bit more with that. And then if I play this, it sticks to that, which and isn't terrible, but it isn't the best option. What we can also do, so let's just shut this off for the moment. What we can also do is just duplicate all of these, hitting Control D, dropping them down to the bottom, hitting Shift Control C to create a pre-comp, and then I top view shadow pre-comp. Right, and I'm going to hit enter there. So it's going to be the same thing. It's literally the butterfly just put into a pre-composition. And if I go to my project here, I can make sure that I put that maybe in my comps folder. I add a new folder called pre-comps. And at the top of that, or at the beginning of that, I put an underscore so it stays at the top here all the time. And then I can bring this pre-comp into here. And on this pre-comp, what I can do now is I can add a fill. So let's do fill. And we're going to drop that onto the top of the pre-comp. And we'll be able to see this if I just shut all these off. And the next thing I want to do is obviously change the color of this fill. I'm going to make it that deep dark blue color. So something like that. And I want to turn the rest of these back on so I can see them. I'm going to scale this just slightly. And probably drop it down to match more of the butterfly. Like there's a light coming from the top source. In fact, I think I want to drop the scale down to 105 so it's not quite crazy. But when I play this, those are going to animate as well. Let's see if we can slightly, if I just move this off by like 1 frame. Let's zoom in here. We'll see. It might just work with the shadow too, just adding the drop shadow. Here. Maybe. Let's worry about offsetting that in a second. What you want to do next is add a Gaussian blur to this underneath the fill. And then when you increase that, what that's going to do is it's going to blur that layer out so we don't see it as sharp. In fact, I'm going to drop this down maybe to 35. Oh, not 385, 35. And then I'm going to drop the opacity of this probably to 50. And then the you can also change the mode if you want to. So if I bring that up, you can change it to multiply. Screen will make it lighter, I think. Overlay. Overlay doesn't look bad. But it doesn't look as much of a shadow to me there. It looks like a bright shadow. So I'm just going to turn it back to normal, drop the opacity to 50, and there is a way to create it quickly. Let's move it this way. The offsetting isn't terrible. I think what I would do is drop the opacity down even more, 35%. So it's not so, I think that looks good. There we go. So you can do it two different ways, okay? So you guys can go in here and you can add the drop shadow if you want to, and do it that way, which looks similar actually. I don't think it looks as bad, but you don't have the option to offset the animation if you want to. So, you know, there is that. If you don't care about that so much, you don't have to do it this way. But if you want to offset that animation a little bit, you can do it this way by creating a pre-comp and then adding a fill and a Gaussian blur. The other thing, and then dropping the opacity. That's a big thing. And then when making sure that when you're offsetting this, you're moving it this way to the left, right? And offsetting it only by like a frame, 2 at max. I don't think I would even do 2. I think it offsets it a little bit too much. But the this just gives a nice visual interest to it. And yeah, cool. Now though, when you go to the end, you can see right here that it's going to cut off. You can see it just kind of stopping, but we shouldn't be using this for 30 seconds total, so that'll be okay. It shouldn't be an issue here. But in the future, you might have to adjust this and add extra time into this pre-comp if that becomes an issue. So we have our butterfly created. And let's go into scene 1 where we have this butterfly added. In fact, I am going to go in here and take this background and remove it from this and put it directly into my scene 1 here. And go like that and bring that below. And so the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to scale this butterfly up. And so I'm just going to hit my S for scale, and I'm going to keyframe my scale and move that ahead 12. Probably, actually, we're going to do 2 different scales here. So I'm going to move maybe to 6 frames and be at 100%, and then here go down to 0, not negative, just to 0. And then I'm going to select those, ease them, go into here, and increase the value. Nice. Maybe it overshoots just slightly, so maybe I can bring this up a little bit. In fact, let's manually add that overshoot because I think it'll be a little bit more interesting. So instead of here being 100, I'm actually going to drag that over a few frames. And right here, I'm going to jump to like 105 so that it goes over 100 a little bit, and then it's going to come down and settle back at 100. So we're adding like a manual overshoot happening here, like this bounce that the butterfly is going to pop in, and just very subtle bounce that's happening there. Like if I wanted this to be an extreme bounce, I could change this to like 115, and you'll see what it looks like. Like all of a sudden, boom, there's more of an extreme bounce that happens there. We can meet halfway in the middle there and do the 110 value. But we've got this nice smooth overshoot that's happening. And then what I can do here is just kind of smooth this curve out a little bit more to make it, there we go, In fact, I kind of want this to be a nice smooth pop into that section. So I'm going to, yeah, cool. So this is going to be obviously way more extreme in like a faster pop. And then this is going to be a smoother looking pop. When your curve is smooth, it's going to be a smoother motion. When your curve is very accentuated like that, it's going to be a more dramatic looking motion. So I prefer the smoother land down. I think that one looks a little bit nicer. And we can zoom out of here. And the next thing we want to do now is bring that scene into our main composition. So we have our main comp open here. And I'm going to drag scene 1 down in. And we notice we want to bring it, first of all, on top of here. And we need this intro to be happening in this section here. But the first thing that I notice is that we need that circle around this, right? And so the circle shape we're going to do using a mask. I'm going to select my scene here. Let me see if that's what I think that's what happens in this one right here. Yeah, I think the entire thing zooms and then you get it to this, but that should be okay. Yeah, I think we'll be okay there. So I'm going to go back to my composition here. And I want to make sure that my circle mask is going to be like kind of centered around my butterfly, right? So making sure that you grab your ellipse tool and then that you're selected on the scene layer. If you're not, you're just going to draw a shape. So you want to make sure that up here you're in the mask mode. And I am going to, from the center, I'm just going to click and drag. And if I hold down shift, I'll get a perfect circle. But if I also hold down control, it will be from the center, right? So I am going to make this. Do I want to do it bigger like that? Is that what I'm going to do? Because I think that we could do it like this, like the mask grows. Actually, let's do this a different way. So I'm going to delete the mask off of there. And we are going to do this using a shape layer. So there's a couple different ways you can do masking inside of After Effects. You can add a mask directly onto the layer like I just did. But that gives you a little bit of limitations when you're going to animate that mask. And what it doesn't allow you to do is really have the full animation control you would if you were using a shape layer. And so I want to use a shape layer actually. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. I'm going to select off of that scene and then I am going to create a shape layer. Holding down shift and control. I think right about there is perfect and it's centered right away in my comp. And I can sit here and just put circle. I actually put mask first usually and then just put circle right here so I can tell what this is. And the color is not going to really matter much because what I'm going to do next is under track map mode, this area right here, this option, I'm going to drop this down and I'm going to select that mask circle. And what that does is it allows me to have, to use that circle that I created as a masking object. But the cool thing about it is that I have all the abilities to move it around and do what I want with it. And I also have the ability to have control over this layer as well. So if I want to move the position down a little bit because it's not necessarily perfectly centered, I can do that, which looks a little bit nicer right there. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I am going to scale this circle right here. So scale, and I am going to move in a little bit, move to 12 frames. Let's see this here. I don't want to wipe out all of the animation I just did, so I think we can move this in a little bit further, and then we're going to go in here and ease that motion. Holding down shift.
Every winter.
There we go. We've got the nice pop happening of the butterfly.
Monarch butterflies migrate.
Every winter. So we've got this section happening here. We have it introducing itself.
Monarch butterfly.
Right here is where we want to switch to the next scene. So what we're going to have to do is scale both the mask and the... Did I do that? Let me see here. Cool. Back to my correct tool. If we look at this, we have to do a scale and also an opacity change. So I think that this option worked for a second, but I don't think it's going to work for this section. So I'm going to bench this part. I'm going to delete that. And we are going to go with the... We are going to, I think, well, let me undo that. Let me just shut this off real quick by shutting off the mat. And let's try it with the mask, because I think the other way is going to be more complicated when we go to do that transition. So I'm going to... make sure I'm selected on the correct scene. Create the mask, shift, control. I'm going to make it about this large. What I might have to do is move this around a little bit to be more centered. And notice what's happening is it's cutting this section off at the top. And so I might have to jump into my monarch view here, hit K, actually into my scene 1. Hit K on here and extend the height of my pre-comp. So maybe this is like 1080. Maybe I put it at 1200. So it's a little bit bigger. And then we have to obviously scale the background to match, right? But it messed up the mask on here. That's okay. We can redo the mask. But as long as like the butterfly, like there's not white showing at the top or it's not showing the blue. So let me select this again. Let's grab the mask. Let me hold down shift. If you hold space bar, you can move the mask around as well, but I'm going to hold down shift and control and probably do something like that. And move it to about here.
Every winter. Monarch butter.
Okay, not bad. So now I have to move the scene to be centered in my composition. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up the top of the circle and the bottom of the circle right there. And then I want to scale that scene. So essentially what I did here with the scale, I can just copy that scale animation I did and just put it right onto this scene. Paste. Oh, but making sure that my playhead is at the beginning. And then I can paste it. And then this I can just delete. And now we have that.
Monarch butterfly.
Cool. That's perfect. And now right here, we need to adjust that scaling to increase all the way. So we need this section to be flat, right? Nothing's happening here. But right here is where we want it to scale all the way up. And we're going to, first of all, let's turn on the continuously rasterize and let's scale this sucker way up. And then at the same time, we're going to hit T on our keyboard and we're going to change the opacity. I'm going to hit U so I can see both keyframes here from that to 0, and that will reveal our next layer, right? So we're going to watch this.
Every winter. Monarch butterflies.
Cool. In fact, I'm going to move this just a little bit over to match right here.
Every winter. Monarch butterfly.
Nice. And I'm going to just trim this comp right here. So I just select the layer and hit Alt, close bracket, and then I'll just trim that comp. And the next thing we do is need to work on scene 2. So we're going to have, there is no background in here. We need to add a background. And if you look in the beginning, the background, or if you look at the reference, the background here is the dark gray, and then here is also that dark gray. So we want to keep that theme going. I'm going to close that. So I'm going to put the dark blue background into here. And now we need to work on the US map. So I have to go into my folder here, desktop. Go to where I have that map of the United States. I'm just opening that up to off to the side. Do you guys have any questions so far about this? Cool. And I believe Lovely Bell updated this last year, so it's easy to change the colors of it. Or well, so that it's black and white, so that we can add, I think we can just add a fill onto this, which is great. So I'm going to just import this. I can close it here. And I'm actually going to just import it directly into the vector folder here. Map of North America, making sure that you do composition, retain layer sizes, import it. Sure, I will keep the pre-comp here, and I will bring that in. And I'm going to scale that. In fact, I'm not going to scale it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the pre-comp size to be larger. So I'm going to change this to a square-sized pre-comp, and then, or a long like portrait style pre-comp. It is squared. Nice, 1920. And then I'm going to change the scaling of this right now, so it's nice and tall, so it matches. And then the next thing that I think I want to do is I'm going to change the color of the map. You can do that inside of Illustrator if you want to. I'm going to bring this into here into pre-comps. And I'm actually going to drop my butterfly layer into pre-comps as well. Let's kind of tidy that up a little bit. You can always add, you can change the color of the map inside of Illustrator if you want to. The other thing you can do is you can add effects to the map inside of After Effects here. So if you want like a gradient ramp like it was in the beginning, you'll go over to your effects and you'll type gradient, and there's 4 color gradients. There's also just a gradient ramp, and I will drop that onto this, and it will get rid of all of those lines, but it allows you to add a gradient to it. The other thing that you can do is you can add a tint under color correction, which allows you to map certain colors to this. So if you want to keep the lines, you can map the black to this color and the white to, I don't know, a green if you wanted to, or, you know, you can have a little bit more freedom with this one if you want to do that. I think I'm going to keep along the lines. I had that blue earlier with the one. I think I'm going to keep it the gradient this time. And here I'm going to go for like a dark, kind of like a dark navy, similar to this. And then here on the white, I'm going to go for a lighter version of that navy to keep with like the blue kind of theme. Maybe that's nice. And then you can also change where the gradient starts. So at the top of your object, there's going to be this like little circular like crosshairs that you're going to see at the top. Whenever you add like a specific effects, you'll see these. When it says in your effect, start, and then it like right here it says start of ramp, and then it has some coordinates, and end of ramp, and it has some coordinates. It will be one of these little crosshairs. So if you see that in any of your in any of your effects that add on, you're going to notice that you'll have the ability to change this. And that gives me the ability to update maybe where those colors are. So if I wanted it more on an angle, I could do that. But I do want it vertically like this. I just want this blue to be a lot down here a little bit further. I think that looks cool. I do want to change this blue. I think I want to drop it more to that aqua color. In fact, this blue too. I think I'm going to drop down and bring more to the aqua. Cool. Not bad. Maybe I want to add, I don't know if I can add an outline. What are they? Maybe add a little outer glow as a layer style so I can get it to kind of pop off from the background. But I don't want it to be that bright. In fact, I'm going to drop this down to like 20. So it's barely there. Actually, 50. We'll bring it up a little bit more. But maybe drop the range down a little bit. Was that a 5? Let me drop it to a 3. That looks good. That's not bad. It just gives me like a little outline to it. I'm going to save that. And now we need to add the, like those little icons that are going to pop up, right? Because they scale into scene here. And then they move their way down along a path, which moves down to, you know, towards South America, but all the way up on North America. And so we need to, first of all, let me close this there. I'm actually going to copy this one because I have all the animations on it into here. So scene 1 into here. And I want to scale. I'm going to remove the scale animations and just bring it up to 100%. And let's drop this down. Obviously, we need it to be smaller. In fact, I am going to not do it this way. We'll just drag the other one in here and then add a mask to it that way. But let's go ahead and, if I drop this in, let me see a couple things. I want to see how big this map looks like when I bring it into the main composition. So I'm going to bring my scene 2 in here just so I can see it. I'm going to move over there. I'm going to change the color of this here and bring it below my first scene because I want this first scene to reveal this next one, right? So when I go like this, it's going to reveal the next scene underneath it. Let me just move it over like that. In fact, okay. I think I can scale this map up quite a bit more to fit a little bit more. That's good. That's not bad. And then what I can do is that allows me to scale in a little bit more here and then go back like this, right? So, because that's what we're also going to be doing. So let's put this at 100% right now. We'll deal with that after. Let's move here and start to animate some paths, right? So before I start to bring in the butterfly, I want to create my path along which the butterfly will move, right? So we've got these paths that are there. And so I'm going to grab my pen tool and I'm going to select off of my map here and I'm just going to start, maybe I start one here and it's going to move like this, down this way. Maybe I want it to be like that a little bit more. And then it's going to continue down. Oh, grab this one right here. And then have it continue down this way. And I want this to not be a fill. So I'm going to turn off the fill. But change it to a stroke. Let's do a stroke like that. Oh, light pink doesn't look bad. That's kind of cute. Let me zoom in here. Smooth this out. First of all, I want to change the color of this so I can see it. There we go. Oh. Let's grab this one. Smooth this path out a little bit more. Not bad. All right, and then the stroke obviously is not going to be that thick, so let's drop that down. We're going to put this as path 1. So, path 1, rename it. And let's drop this down quite a bit. 15 will work. And then let's just center the anchor point for now. So grabbing the anchor point tool, control double clicking will allow you to center that in the center of your path. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to save real quick. And the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to create 2 more. So grab this here. Maybe one comes down from here. And it starts to converge. Let's go closer this way. So maybe it starts to converge in there, going down to the same area. And then I will do that with another one, maybe over here. Maybe over this way. Right there, right? And then I'm going to smooth out these paths. So they're not so jarring. First of all, I'm going to rename them. Path 2. Path 3. You can also duplicate path 1 and just change it. Oops, 3. Change the path shape. You can always do that. And then pick that one. Or this will be orange. There we go. Save. Let me grab path 2 and we're going to update the lines on that. So zooming in here. I don't like hard kind of connections. I want it to kind of be smooth, right? I think smooth looking lines. I'm going to update this one again. So I'm going to select path 1. Grab this here. Drag this out. Maybe bring this in a little bit more. There we go. Oh, it doesn't look so bad. Nice, not terrible. Grab path 2 again. Grab this one right here. If I hold down Alt, it allows me to have those Bezier handles to make like a curve if there isn't a curve there, if it was just a single click. And then let's smooth out path 3, hitting B here. Let's right here. I think we can do a little bit of smoothing. That looks not bad. Maybe we move this up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we have 3 smooth looking paths. In the original one, you saw like a tapered line, which we can also do. Now, if you go to your properties panel, which is right over here, let me add the properties panel right here. You can go down. Well, you could before. Let's change the line join, first of all, to all of them. I like a round join on the line, so you have to select each one separately. And under your properties panel, you can select round cap on them, so you get a rounded edge. And then if you want that tapered view, what you can do next is if you drop down your contents, down your shape, and then you go into your stroke, at the bottom there's a taper option, and you can change the start length, which is at the beginning. Let me zoom out here and we can look just to double check because we're on the first path, and that must be, yeah, that's perfect. That is the start length right up here. So we get this taper. Let's change this to 20%. And then the start width, you can move that width a little bit if you don't want it to be so thin there. You can update the start width. So we'll just add 10, right? So let's do the same thing to all of them. And not going to worry about the end because the end is going to be covered by the icon, right? So again, content shape, go down into stroke, go down into taper, and change the start length of the taper. And then I'm going to change the start width to whatever the taper is plus 10. That's what I usually like to do when it comes to smoothing things out inside of After Effects, or finding like a smooth transition between, all sorts of different values, or whatever I'm trying to find, like a smooth transition, maybe between a gradient, in between different values. I usually like to start to add 10 and then see what that looks like, and possibly add more, deduct more, but I like to start at that value. Change. So then 30, and then usually it looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to save this. And now what we want to do is we want to add in our butterfly icons. So I'm going to grab under the pre-comp, the top view butterfly. I'm actually going to, oh no, let's actually do scene 1. And we're going to drag that into here. And right away, it's obviously really big, so we need to change that. I also am going to change the color of the scene outline so I can see it's a little bit different. And we need to scale this down quite a bit. So scale, drop down to maybe something like this. If we go to fit, actually maybe 100%, I think it'll look a little bit better. There we go. Okay. So we're right about here isn't bad. I'm going to line up the anchor point to the very end or beginning of the line, and I'm going to add the mask onto this now. So selecting my mask, and I'm just going to draw that holding down shift. And this one, instead of holding down control, I'm just going to space and move it so that it centers itself in the middle of the butterfly. Bring that down a little bit more. Bring it over a little bit. Cool. So now I have, but notice like you still have the animation that's happening there. That's the power of all of this, right? So, first thing I want to do is I want to drag this above the path because I don't want the path to show underneath. And then I want to scale this in. So I'm going to hit scale at the beginning. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to start the scale probably right about here at 12 frames. And the reason I'm moving the animation forward 12 frames is because we need to have this fading in at the same time. And so I don't want the animation to be happening right here where the transition is happening. I want the animation to occur after the transition so we can see everything that's going on. And so I'm going to move again up ahead 12 frames, and that's where we're going to start the animation here. And I'm going to hit scale on my keyboard. I'm going to keyframe this probably 20%. Well, actually, let's do 15 so that we have room for these other guys here. And I'm going to move this forward 12 frames so that we're right at the 1 second, and then back here, and I'm going to go to 0, right? So I'm animating backwards essentially. And then I want to select these, and we're going to F9 and go into our graph editor, and we are going to do that. Nice. So that's going to be a nice pop-up. In fact, we can add the little bounce here. So if I move 1, 2, 3 frames before, I'll type in 18. So it's going to pop up and then rest down there. Nice. We can go into our graph here and we can smooth that out. All right. Nice. Not bad. I'm going to bring that one over. Maybe it doesn't even have to be that high of a pop. So instead of 18, maybe I'll put down 16. So it only goes 1% higher. Or 17. It's a very small percentage. But these little details just add a little bit of love to your animations. And then just kind of coming in here, and maybe I want to bring this up a little bit and out. Nice. Okay. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to maybe even bring this back a couple more frames. Okay, cool. Now, in the other one, there was like, there's like an outline around the icon, as well as a drop shadow here. So let's emulate that. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to click off of that layer, and I'm going to just grab my shape tool and shut off the stroke and turn on the fill to a solid. And I'm going to draw a circle holding down shift. And let's center the anchor point. Control double click. And we want to drag this below our seed. Obviously it's too big, so I'm going to scale this down, but I also need to change the position of it. So I want to kind of center this up with my icon there. Let's drop the scale. That's not bad. Let's align these. So if I grab my scene and my shape and I go to my alignment tool over here, and I just, if it's a selection, you can just click and click and it'll align them perfectly to each other based on the anchor points. And then let's change the color of this. So I'm going to just type icon outline for the name of this layer. And I'm going to change it the same color as the scene. So it was that dark purple color. So I can just see. And then I want to attach this to my scene so that no matter what my scene does, so does a little outline. It follows. And let's change the color to and go like that deep color there. Cool, that works. And then we need to essentially duplicate this 2 more times to be at the beginning of these ones. So I'm going to hit both of these, and I'm just going to Control D, move it above path 2, and I'm actually going to change the colors of the icons to the same color as the path so that I can see, so that they're kind of in groups for me. So right away I can be like, oh, these go together. And then this one I'm going to move over here to this line. And then I'm going to grab these and duplicate them again and move them above path 3 and change them to, I think that is orange. Perfect. And then I'm going to just grab that scene 1 and move it over here. And so now if I play this, I've got all 3 of these popping up at the same time. Now I want them to animate along this path here to kind of follow the path of the paths that I created, right? Obviously that's what I want to happen. But you know, it's kind of hard to just follow along this path just using property or position animations manually, right? And so what we're going to do is we are going to animate along the path, but in a different way. So if I go to my path 1, let's just solo this so we can see what's going on here. And I'll leave the background on. And if I drop down on my path 1, and inside of the contents layer, you drop shape down, and there's the option that says path, and I unfurl that and I select this actual path. And if I Control C and copy that path, And then I go to the position of my scene here, and I paste, if I move here to where I want the animation to start, and I just paste that position, that path, onto my position here. Look how it automatically adds some keyframes. And now when I play, it actually follows along that entire path that I've already created. And so we've got all of that animation with just a couple little clicks, right? So you're really saving a lot of time just copying pasting the path to the position property of the butterfly. Now this looks great, but we want the butterfly to really reveal, we want the butterfly icon to reveal the trail. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add a trim path to this path line. And you can do that by unfurling again the layer, and down here under add there is an option that says trim paths. If I zoom in here, you can see that right here. And you're going to want to click on that, and it's going to add this little option down here underneath your contents panel, and I'm going to open that up. And if you look, if I take the end, the end percentage here, I can change this path. Now I can also do the beginning one if I want it to be different. If I wanted it to be a certain length all the time, I could change, like if I wanted it to be 50% of what it always is, right? I could just go to 25 and then add 50%, which would be 75. And then I can animate the offset, which will allow me to have like this only partial part of the line. And then what it does is you can kind of cycle through if you want to do that. But I am going to just animate the end property. I think that'll be just fine. So I'm going to start at 0. And then as I move along here, I'm going to go all the way to the end and go to 100. But it might need to be updated throughout here so that the line doesn't go beyond the icon. So you might have to maybe adjust where this is a little bit more, or drag it out a little bit more to adjust the timing so that the line stays essentially underneath your icon. Right now, because I haven't done any easing to these animations, specifically the position animation right here, that is why I'm not having any issues right here with the trim paths on my actual line. But let's see if that causes an issue once I do this. So I'm gonna select these keyframes here. Notice these little circular keyframes. These are continuous rove across time keyframes. So these are going to you know, just if we look at the graph, you can kind of see they're just kind of moving across time. I'm just gonna ease that standard ease, and then I'm going to come into here. We would have to separate the, let's see, let's separate the values here and see what that does. Oof, that looks bad. Just leave it, you could leave it on the standard easing, and I think that will be okay. You can also change the timing here if you want to by, if you select all of your keyframes and hold down Alt, you can adjust the timing that way as well. But I think this looks okay. Notice how when I eased that, for a second there, the line went past the icon. I do want this, however, to be longer. I want this to last a little bit longer because the voiceover is, let's see here.
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Okay. That's quite a bit longer, so it's got to be like about 4 seconds long. Let me move this back. Let me go here. So from 1 to 5, let's take this here, hold down Alt, and just kind of drag that over so you get this slower animation that's happening there. Perfect. And then I'm going to, in fact, I think I'm going to drag it to 6 because what I want to happen is I want the animation to continue when we're transitioning into the next scene. So maybe that's a little too slow. Maybe we bring it to 5.5. seconds there. That'll work. And then we're going to do the same thing to these other ones, right? So let's solo those layers so we can see everything. And let's take the path from... Perfect. Let's take the path from path 2. So again, dropping down to the path option. We're going to copy that. We're going to go to scene 1. We're going to go to position, and we are going to paste the position onto here. And then we are going to add, you can actually copy the trim paths from this one right here. You want to grab the entire like little section thing. Then you can copy that and paste it onto your path here. So I've got my trim paths going on as well. And then I want to, so I'm going to hit U on my keyboard so I can see those keyframes. And then I'm going to select these. I'm going to add the default easing. And then I'm going to hold down Alt and then extend the timing of this. And then it should also do that. Cool. They're overlapping a little bit. That's okay. If I want to adjust my path, here is the thing about that. Actually, we'll adjust the path of this one in just a second. We'll move it over this way a little bit more. So let me do that now so you guys can see how to make that change. Because we're already at 7. We're already at 8 o'clock. Yeah, let's move forward with this. I'm not going to do this third one here. I'll let you guys do that, but you want to have 3. So let's say I've got them animated and the paths intersect a little bit and I'm not happy with it. The first thing I want to do is I want to go to this position here and I want to unkeyframe that because we are going to change this initial path, right? And so in order to make this path change, we have to go down here to our path line and we have to select these options and maybe we move them a little bit. So maybe I take these ones and shuffle them over a little bit more and have to adjust the way this moves, the way this one looks. And I like that a little bit more. And then I have to move the actual, first of all, there's a trim paths on there, so I need to move this. And I'm going to center that in the middle of where the line starts. And now I can copy the path again and go back to the position and paste it and hit F9. And then change the timing by holding down Alt and dragging that. And so now it will update that for me. The other thing that I can do, so I'm just going to shut this one off so we don't see it, but you guys should have at least 3 on here. The other thing I want to do is add a drop shadow. So instead of adding a drop shadow to the scene icon, I'm going to add it to the icon outline. I think that will, that way it's underneath the outline itself and not under the icon showing on the outline, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go over here and just basic drop shadow should be fine for this. Drop shadow. Perfect. Icon outline. Let's bring that to the top here. Zoom in. All right. You can see the drop shadow. Let's change it to a dark blue. We're going to increase the distance to, I don't know, 8. That's good. And then 16 for the softness. Doubler. There we go. Cool. And then I'm just going to quickly select this effect up there and just copy. And then move to the second outline. And then paste it. And then it pasted it right onto this one as well. So now they have their little drop shadows on them. In fact, you can add that to your path if you want to. So I could do that. Excuse me. Sorry. And then do this. And then I think I'm going to change the path color to a blue version of this. Perfect. Copy. And then I'm going to do the same right there. Paste. Okay. Perfect. Excellent. Cool. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go to my main composition here, and because I want this to be revealed by this layer, I'm also going to animate the opacity. So we're going to start, we can animate backwards, right? So I'm going to move that there and keyframe at 100, drag this over, go to 0.
Monarch butterflies migrate.
And then we want it to start kind of like a zoomed in position. So I'm actually going to have the scale up here. And I'm going to start at 100, keyframe there, and I'm going to drag this all the way over to this section where the kaleidoscope of butterflies would start. Bring it over a little bit more. And over here, I'm going to start it zoomed in more because we want it to kind of...
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Cool, okay. But we also need to animate. So instead of... I don't want the scaling to start right here. I actually want to move it to the beginning here so that while it's fading on, it's also starting to scale and moving down in scale. I don't think it needs to go all the way. It can, yeah, I guess it can go to 100%. I'd probably change the scale up to like, what does it start at over here? 210. Maybe 125, 150 here. So it's still going to be kind of big. 125 I think will be good right there. Cool. And then we need to animate the position, right? So obviously I'm going to hit U. I'm going to shift P so I can bring the position up. I'm going to start the position was fine up here where it started. It looked really good where those go, but I need to kind of follow that down. And so I'm going to move this down, animate this moving down while I am also scaling.
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America. Monarch.
Nice. Okay, cool. In fact, I don't even need it to go... I want it to be slower, so I'm going to drag this out a little bit more. Oh. Right here. Maybe this happens... What is this? Scale. I want the position. I'm going to drag the position in a little bit more. So
Monarch
that...
butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
I don't think the scaling needs to be so drastic. So I'm going to bring this to 175. Let's see that.
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Okay, cool. The position can stay there. Let's move this all back further. So what that does is it just slows it down, right? In fact, the other thing I want to do is I want to slow down the timing of these. So I had them at first 5.5, but I think it could be even slower. So I'm going to grab the position of the scene and the trim paths. Well, let's do one at a time. I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to stretch it to 7 seconds right here, so it's a little bit slower. And then I'm going to grab this here to match that up. And then the position here, we don't need to do that to the scale, just the position properties and the trim path properties that we have animated. There we go. There we go. I think that'll be a little bit better and slow this down a little bit because it's a little too fast for my taste.
Butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Excellent. So now we don't need as drastic of a position change either. So I can bring this up a little bit more or back down here.
Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Latin America.
Nice. And because the animation of the scene here in your main composition between the position and scale, because they're happening during the fade, when the fade's on, right? So it's automatically already animating there. And then it's going to be continuing to animate when it fades off screen to reveal the next scene. I don't have to ease these, right? I kind of want them to be linear animation to show that that it's consistently moving the same, the camera is consistently moving the same speed from when we start to see the scene to when the scene goes off screen. It's just going to give us that like mental, like, oh, it's already been moving, it's continuing to move, kind of we're drawing conclusions without having to see it. So that's why I'm not going to ease these keyframes right now. But we do want to bring up the next scene. So
America to Latin America.
Latin America. Perfect. And now what we want to do is here is where we're going to use that scaling of the circle. So I'm going to create the circle shape mask. Well, I'm going to grab the ellipse tool, and it doesn't matter what color it is, right? Because we're going to use it as a mask to reveal the third scene. So right now it's like a just dark blue. I'm going to hold down shift. I'm going to draw the circle. I'm going to hit control to center the circle. Control, alt, no. Okay, that'll work right there. Let me control double click here to center the anchor point. I'm just going to put mask, circle, and I am going to click off of that and align this in the center of the composition. Right there, perfect. And it is going to, I can just take this and move this over here, because what's going to happen is it's going to scale up to reveal the next scene.
Okay.
Perfect. It could start right about here. And I'm going to hit scale on here. And we'll start at, we're going to move to about here, because we want this to continuously be moving, right? And go to 0, animating backwards.
Monarch.
And we need to go higher than 100% because it needs to scale totally to reveal the next scene, which it will do. So we need to scale it all the way up. And we need to ease this animation. So we're going to do the default easing, go into our graph editor here, and we're going to accentuate that. Lovely, lovely. Changes the graph here.
Monarch.
Ooh, that's real fast. Let's drop this in a little bit more. Maybe go like this.
Monarch's music.
That's cool. Because it kind of slowly eases into this full screen position, which I like. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to bring scene 3 into here and drop it down into our main comp. I'm going to change the color here to green, and I'm going to drag this over all the way right here, because I want to have this track mat do the circle mask, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to reveal that new layer once we have it. And then I'm going to cut this mask short by just trimming the end. And this one, because there's nothing in here, it's obviously not showing anything. So we need to add something in here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to throw in a solid. But what would be in this scene for you guys would be your mountain range, or your North American nature scene, like your outdoor scene, right? So I'll just throw in On this one, what I'll do is I'll just throw in a couple makeshift mountains right now, I guess. So let's go to like a grayish, bluish gray. I'm gonna hit OK, and then I'm just gonna make like a quick mountain range. And I'm going to create another mountain range. And this one will be a little bit darker. And maybe on this, we need to grab that and then we can add some mountain caps. Oops, cancel. I want to add a new shape onto it. So making sure I have my shape layer. Let's just grab this. Up here, over here. And then that will be the white color, but I have to go into shape 2, under fill, and change the fill to a white so we can get snow-capped mountains. Okay. Great. And then I'll do it to this one. Obviously, you guys need to take more time with this. I'm just doing it quickly. Okay, so that one just created a new shape. If I would have kept it on the other shape layer, it would have been a better idea, but this works just fine. And you would do that to this one too. So and changing the color of that. Duplicating it, moving it. Ooh. Maybe do that. And then I grab the path and just update the path. Okay, cool. So we have quick mountain range. I'll pre-compose this. And then in the background in the other one, there was a sun. So I don't want to create a mask. I want to create a shape. Double click that. Let's change the color of this. The other one had a gradient, a radial gradient. Let's pull this out a little bit more. And we have the solar eclipse, folks. Let's double click this and this color. We will do like all right. It works. Perfect. Let's drag that beneath the mountains there. And let's start looking into the kaleidoscope of butterflies. So, the first thing that I want to do is I am going to take this butterfly pre-comp. In fact, I'm going to make a new pre-comp. So under my vector layers, if I scroll down and do the monarch, I'm going to grab the one antenna. I'm going to grab the body, and I am going to grab the body, the antenna, and the wing. And I'm going to drag these in here. Now, when you're doing yours, I want you to do like a side profile of the body for your butterfly and not take this shortcut here that I'm doing. I just don't really have time. We have like 15 minutes. So I definitely want to show you guys how to do this, but I don't want you to kind of take this shortcut way. And then I'm going to pre-compose these into side monarch, butterfly, side view. Okay. And we're going to double click into this and we're going to zoom out, and I'm going to put this guy, first of all, I want the anchor point to be up towards his chest more. And I'm going to rotate him to be on his side, right? And then I want to take the antenna, and I'm going to move the antenna, holding down V. And the antenna would probably go right here. I'm going to move the anchor point to be down here. And attach that to the body. And then the wing would be on top. The wing now has to be in a different position, so I'm going to move this here. But I want this to be mirrored, so I have to come in here and change the X position to -100. And then I want to rotate this into position real quick. And I'm going to move this right about here on my butterfly. Probably rotate the position a little bit more. It's okay, Papa. It's okay. Shh. You're fine. And then I'm going to move this back to be in position where it needs to be for the butterfly wing flapping. And then I'm going to, ooh, I don't need, I actually do need to duplicate it, but before I do that, I'm going to save. And then I'm going to turn these into 3D layers. Okay. And we want to do a rotation of the wing flap, which would be here. Opposite. Perfect. Okay. So it's going to be the, yeah, we need that lined up. -70, I think looks good on there. And then, so let's start animating the wing flap of this first butterfly. So it's going to be the X rotation. So we're going to start at 0. We're going to move in 12 frames. I'm going to zoom in here. We're going to move in 12 frames. And we're going to move outwards. Right? Let's move this a little bit more that way. I think that looks good right there. So -65. Okay, cool. And then we're going to go back in. So 0. And then we're going to do exactly what we did the last time. We're going to give like an alternative wing flap. So maybe this one goes down a little bit further. And then it ends at 0 again. And then we are going to take these and we're going to ease them. And let's accentuate this. Cool. Right down here, we're going to accentuate. Nice. So now when we watch it, let's see. Cool, not bad. I think it's a little slow because the butterfly is going to be moving across the screen. So let's just take all of this and we're going to select them, and I'm going to hold down Alt and just kind of bring them in a little bit more. So, not bad. Cool. Let's loop that animation. So I'm going to alt click on the stopwatch and type loop out. Excellent. Enter that. And now I want to make sure that it's not interacting with the body like we did last time. So we're going to have to move the body into a different space. So I'm going to go into 2 views here. And when this is like this, that's good. This is a good spot for me to be like, okay, that's as far as it's going to go. So the body, I need to make sure the wing's not attached to the body. And I need to move the body backwards a little bit more. To right here. I think that should be good. And then let's look at that here. So now when I move the body back, look what it does with the perspective of the body changes. So I need to move the body forward a little bit this way. So the wing is in the correct position. So it's going to be a little bit of adjusting back and forth. Maybe not as, that looks good right there. Just a little bit. Cool. In fact, I think I'm going to move the body back just slightly more. Nice, not bad. And then I'm going to duplicate this wing. And we're going to look at these numbers, these values here, and we're going to type them in the opposite. So -39. And then I think this will be -50. And we want to move that on the other side of the body. So if we're looking here, we need to move it this way a little bit more. Maybe we're going to have to move it up because it's now on a line. And we want to rotate it just slightly more initially than the rest of the body, because you can change the orientation of it, because we want to be able to see both of those wings flapping. We're getting a little bit of some interference here where the wings are over top of each other, so I need to move this back here. Maybe need to move up more. Back this way more. There we go. Nice. But that looks like a nice butterfly wing flap. And they're not touching each other here, which is really important. I know it looks off where these layers are, right? Like it looks really funny on here on the 2 view. But when you go back into your single view, it looks normal. It looks like those butterfly wings are flapping on the body of the butterfly. In fact, I'm going to change his rotation just slightly so he's a little bit more vertical. And I'm going to move him back a little bit more. Even more. There we go. I think that's nice. And then we're going to essentially I'm going to close this up. So now we have our butterfly here. We need to make sure we continuously rasterize so that will stay sharp no matter where we're at. And I need to change where the anchor point is on this butterfly. So I'm going to hit Y. And I'm going to bring the anchor point to the front of the butterfly body. And then we're essentially going to animate this the same way we just did. We're going to follow along a path. So I'm going to take my pen tool and I'm going to draw a path. I don't want to be selected on that layer. I want to make sure I'm selected off. And I'm just going to draw a path. It's okay if it has a fill, because we're going to change that here. We're going to shut off the fill. And I'm just going to take this path here. I'm going to grab this, maybe update that a little bit more. Update this a little bit more here. There we go. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure I drag this far enough off screen so that my butterfly flies all the way off screen. Ooh. There we go. And I'm going to copy this path copy and go to the position of my butterfly and paste that position. Go to the beginning of my timeline, hit paste there. And so now the butterfly moves all the way across there. Now the one thing you're noticing though is the butterfly isn't really orienting along the path. We want it to follow and kind of turn as it goes around the path of this line that we created, right? So we want it to kind of follow and orient itself. Well, there's something that you can do to change that. You go to, where are you? I know you are, I think you're in auto trace. It's usually like auto orient, orient along path. Let's see here. I think you can just right click. I thought it was like the shortcut is like Control O. No, that's not it. Save this. Alt O. That's not it either. I'm just looking it up real quick. I know we're almost done, you guys, so. Command Option O or Control Alt O. So I was close. So it's select that and hit Control Alt O, and you select Orient Along Path, and you hit OK. And automatically the butterfly flips to the wrong side. That's okay. We're going to select the layer. We're just going to hit R for rotate, and we're going to rotate in the correct position. And we're going to rotate it along the path here. And so now what's going to happen is the butterfly is going to follow that path. So it's going to move when that butterfly goes down. It dips down along that same path that we created, right? And so now what I'm going to do, I can delete that layer. And I'm going to hit U on my keyboard because it kind of goes through a little bit fast. So I'm going to select all these and I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to expand that so it takes them a second to get across so we can see those wing flaps. Maybe it's a little too slow there. Maybe I'll drag that in a little bit faster. That looks better. And we want to ease these keyframes, so we'll go to the speed graph and we will, the speed graph we want it to speed up real fast, kind of be speeding up in between here. Let's see. Oh, neat, dipping kind of quick. Let's change this a little bit. You can do that. Move this a little bit more this way to kind of give it more of an auto ease. That looks nice, not bad. Now we have to have variations of this butterfly in here, right? Because it's supposed to be a kaleidoscope of butterflies. And so I'm actually going to duplicate this several times. And what I want to do now is I'm going to hit U on my keyboard. And I want to offset these butterflies. So not only am I going to change where they're starting, so they're not all starting at the same time, but I also want their paths or their positions to be different, right? So if I select the entire position over here, like all of the keyframes, and I drag this around, I can change where that path is, right? So I can update them like this a little bit more so they're off there. You just want to make sure they're always off screen. At some point, they always end up off screen, right? So moving this one down a little bit. And the next thing I want to do, right, I want to make sure these guys aren't on top of each other. So I think that's this one. I'm going to drag this down and over. Which one is this guy? Let's grab the original one. Move him around. There we go. Let's change the timing. There we go. That's what we needed to do. Is scaling them. So they're different scales. They're not all the same size. So this one I'll do 100. This one I'll do like 60% size. This one, I don't know, maybe this one's 80%. This one's 110%. This one's still 100%, or maybe 90%. So they're all kind of different sizes when they're flying by. And you're going to want to duplicate this a bunch of times. So you have like a ton of butterflies and you're going to want to offset them. So maybe I did this. I'm going to duplicate these again, bring them all up top this way to the very top, and then move this back so that no matter what, there's like tons of groups of butterflies flying by at all different times, right? I'm going to end the live stream up here, but I want to touch on a couple things before I do that. First thing is obviously making sure you have a lot of these butterflies on here to make it a kaleidoscope. The second thing now is, if we're watching here, you can see how this mask that we made now reveals this kaleidoscope of butterfly scenes, right? So this is really neat. We can, in fact, take this scene and move it up a little bit more.
Monarchs use
so
a
while we're
combination
playing it,
of air currents and thermals to travel thousands of miles.
And right about here where it says thousands of miles, don't forget to add in your credits, right? We want to have your credits, making sure you have your audio, your music on. So when I play this,
monarch butterflies,
it's got the music in the
from
background.
North America to Latin America.
I'm going to save this. The other thing that you want to do is you want to add like some random wiggling expressions to these butterflies, which is in the module. I show you guys how to add this wiggle effect to the butterflies. Let me change this back to red. So I would definitely say to watch this one. Watch the parallax video too, where I teach you guys how to create a parallax animation of your background. So if you happen to have things in the background that would move, then the parallax will help make your scene look really neat. Now, parallaxing on this might not be as great because you could still do it because the mountains could like still shift to the side, but you still want to add subtle animations to here, right? So maybe the sun is setting, which would just be a position change, and then the clouds that you saw in the original one right over here. The clouds are animating, so you'll want to animate some clouds or something in here, but making sure that you're adding those small animations to this nature scene will make it look even cooler than what it looks like now. It just adds those tiny bits of animation detail, which really pulls the scene together in its entirety. So that's what I want you guys to do for this weekend, okay? Is making sure, I know we didn't hit on it, but we got through the rest of it. But making sure that you add some parallax into here if you can. But definitely adding the wiggle to the butterflies and adding animations to the background. And then also the credits. That's it. And you guys should know how to do credits at this point. Should know how to do those. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and ask them in Discord. Other than that, I'm going to be closing down the live stream. Do you guys have any questions for me right now before I shut it down? This is more of a fun one. So, this is more of like an entire scene. I'm so sorry for my 3-year-old nostrils going crazy on the live stream. I'm really sorry about that. Night, Jose. Hope your spicy shrimp with rice was good. I'm going to go eat my dinner. I don't know what it is, but. All right, you guys. Have a good weekend. Write me if you have any questions, and I will talk to you guys later. All right.